A single Megalodon tooth is the size of a grown adult's hand. 7 inches of serrated enamel with edges that still cut after more than 20 million years in the ground. For a century, scientists and filmmakers looked at teeth like these and pictured the same animal. A great white shark scaled up into a monster, the same body from every shark movie, just 3 times longer. That picture hangs in museums, it fills the films, and in 2025, it fell apart. The creature those teeth belonged to was not a giant great white. It was a different shape, a different kind of hunter, and by the newest evidence, even larger than the monster science had imagined. The largest shark that ever lived had been wrong in almost every reconstruction, and the truth is stranger, because the very thing that made it unstoppable is what destroyed it. The image is familiar to almost everyone. A great white the size of a bus, stocky and torpedo-shaped, with rows of teeth set in a jaw wide enough to stand inside. That image exists for one reason. When scientists first tried to rebuild this animal, the closest living relative available was the great white shark. So they took a great white and enlarged it, and that became the Megalodon in every textbook and every film. It felt right. The same teeth, the same ambush hunter, the same shape, only bigger. For decades there was no reason to question it. But that reconstruction was built on an assumption, not a skeleton. And an assumption that large tends to hide exactly how much remains unknown. What makes Megalodon so hard to measure is its own biology. Sharks are not built like other animals. They have no true bones. Their skeletons are made of cartilage, the same flexible tissue in a human ear or nose, and cartilage almost never fossilizes. It decays before it can turn to stone. So of the largest predatory shark in history, almost nothing survives. No complete skeleton has ever been found. What remains is teeth, thousands of them, because teeth are coated in the hardest tissue in the body and a scattering of fossil vertebrae. That is the entire physical record of a 60-foot animal. Every reconstruction ever made was built from a mouth and a few pieces of spine. Which means that for 100 years, the size of the Megalodon was less a measurement than an educated guess. Everyone assumed it was a good one. That assumption was about to break. For years, the accepted figure was that Megalodon reached about 50 to 60 feet, roughly 3 school buses end to end, weighing perhaps 50 tons. That number came from scaling up the great white, matching tooth size to body length, and stretching the familiar shape until the math worked. It was the number on the museum plaques, the number in the documentaries, the number most people have heard. On its own, it is already staggering. A 50-foot shark is longer than most boats a person will ever stand on. But the figure carried a hidden flaw. It assumed the Megalodon was shaped like a great white in the first place. Remove that single assumption, and the entire reconstruction has to be rebuilt from nothing. In 2025, a team of researchers finally did. Instead of scaling up the great white, the researchers studied the Megalodon's vertebrae directly and compared its proportions against more than 100 species of living and extinct sharks. The body that emerged was not the stocky great white everyone pictured. It was longer, and it was leaner, less a bulldog and more a giant, sleek torpedo, a body shaped closer to a mako or a lemon shark than the heavy-bodied great white. And when the animal was rebuilt with the correct proportions, its length did not shrink. It grew. The new estimates reach up to about 80 feet, more than 20 meters, longer than a semi-truck and its trailer combined. The shape had been wrong for a century, and because the shape was wrong, science had been underselling just how enormous this animal truly was. It would be easy to hear the word leaner and imagine something weaker. The opposite is true. A stocky great white is built for short, explosive ambushes, a burst from below and a single bite. A long, streamlined body is built for something far more dangerous: endurance, efficiency, range. A shape like that does not wait in a single bay. It cruises across entire oceans, covering thousands of miles, hunting with the tireless economy of an animal built never to stop moving. The correction did not make the Megalodon slower. It made it global. A warm, efficient, ever-moving hunter that could follow its prey across the whole planet. And its prey was the largest animals of its age. On that body sat the weapons. A Megalodon's jaws held up to 276 teeth, each front tooth as long as 7 inches and serrated like a steak knife down every edge. The force behind them is almost difficult to state plainly. Estimates for its bite reach into the range of 40,000 pounds of force, something close to 10 times the bite of a great white, and among the most powerful ever calculated for any animal that has ever lived. This was not a bite meant to wound and wait. It was engineered to crush bone, to shear through the ribcage of a whale in a single closing of the jaws. And none of it has to be imagined. The proof is carved into the fossils the animal left behind. Around the world, paleontologists keep pulling the same thing out of the rock. The bones of ancient whales, scarred with enormous gouges, and lodged inside some of them, the broken tips of Megalodon teeth. These are not scavenging marks. They are strikes on the flippers and the tail, the places of predator attacks to cripple prey that could otherwise escape. Megalodon was hunting whales the size of buses, and winning. And there is more. Along warm, shallow coastlines, researchers have found nurseries, sites dense with the small teeth of juveniles, protected shallows where the young grew up shielded from the open sea. This was not a mindless monster, it was a strategist, with hunting grounds and nurseries sitting unchallenged at the very top of its world. Which leaves only one real question. What could possibly bring an animal like that down? The answer begins inside the animal itself. A study of the chemistry locked in Megalodon teeth revealed something almost no shark can do. It was partly warm-blooded. Most sharks run at the temperature of the water around them, but Megalodon held its body several degrees warmer than the surrounding sea, a rare trait called mesothermy. That warmth was a weapon. It powered faster muscles, quicker digestion, and the ability to hunt in cooler water where other predators could not follow. But warm blood in a cold ocean comes at a brutal price. It takes staggering amounts of food to keep an 80-foot body burning hotter than the water it swims through. The Megalodon was an engine running permanently at full throttle. And an engine like that has one fatal weakness. It cannot afford to run out of fuel. About 3.5 million years ago, the fuel began to disappear. The planet slid into a long cooling phase. Ice locked up at the poles, sea levels fell, and the warm, shallow coastlines where Megalodon raised its young started to vanish. At the same time, the great whales it depended on were shifting toward colder, richer polar waters, following their own food. For most predators, a changing climate is a hardship. For a warm-blooded giant that had to eat almost constantly, it was a death sentence slowly tightening. The buffet was closing, the nurseries were draining away, and the largest shark that ever lived was burning through energy it could no longer replace. And then, into that shrinking world moved a smaller and smarter competitor. That competitor was the last one anyone would expect. The great white shark. Not the ancestor Megalodon had been scaled from, but a true rival, smaller, more agile, and far cheaper to keep alive. Analysis of the chemistry and fossil teeth shows the two hunted the same prey in the same waters, and in a world where food was vanishing, Efficiency beats raw size every time. The great white never defeated the Megalodon in a fight. It simply needed less to survive, and took the meals the giant could no longer afford to miss. This is the real reversal. The Megalodon was not killed by a bigger monster. It was outlasted by a leaner one, starved out of its own ocean by a shark a fraction of its size. Everything that had made it the perfect predator, the heat, the size, the endless appetite, became the exact reason it could not survive a world that turned lean. So, science was wrong about Megalodon twice over, wrong about its shape, and wrong to assume that something so powerful was built to last. It was longer, leaner, and more formidable than the monster in the movies. And its own perfection is what doomed it the moment the ocean changed. It leaves an unsettling question worth arguing about in the comments. If a shark the size of a truck could be starved out of existence, what does that say about the giants still swimming in the ocean today? And there is one more thing worth sitting with. Megalodon may have ruled its seas, but it did not rule them alone. Somewhere in that same ancient water moved a whale with teeth over a foot long, an animal built not to flee the Megalodon, but to hunt it. That is the next story. Ocean Uncovered, the stories hidden beneath the surface.